Overclockers, my name's Briony and I am here with Gareth for another episode of the Overclockers UK podcast. We're going to be talking about Stop Killing Games, physical games and the game industry in general. But you guys have never met Gareth before, so we're going to go ahead and introduce him. He's super nervous, so make sure that you're nice in the comments. Gareth, what's your job title? Because you've got like 2 job titles.
Yeah, so hello, my name's Gareth.
Sorry, I totally outed you there as well.
I know. My name's Gareth. I am Group Digital Director for Pro Gamers Group, which is the parent company for Overclockers UK. And then I'm also Head of Digital for Overclockers UK. So I kind of oversee all aspects really of marketing and e-commerce. Everything you see on our marketing, on our channels, and then also the website and how you interact with the website and how you buy stuff basically.
Yes, Gareth is also my manager as well, so I can't say anything too controversial on this podcast. But it should be a good fun. Gareth, basically website, marketing, digital. You're a workaholic, so yeah.
You've really outed me there. You've gone in 2-footed.
Do you want to say, like, maybe, is there any cool projects or anything you're working on right now?
Yeah, we've got like a few bits in the work at the moment. There's some stuff that's like kind of like already gone live. So we're always tweaking the website and kind of just finding new ways to make people find it easier to find products and discover things. So we've had like a whole new rework of the water cooling part of the website recently. It kind of was starting to look a bit dated, and if you weren't knowing exactly what you were looking for, it's quite hard to kind of browse that. So we've kind of made that area of the website a lot more easier to browse and navigate, especially if you're quite new to water cooling. So that's kind of like one example of things working on behind the scenes. Yeah.
Lots of stuff all the time, website and like customer experience, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I know we've mentioned like AI in the podcast before. I think AI and what's happening there, especially with Google and AI summaries on Google results, is definitely changing how we do our marketing as well. We've got to be a lot more mindful of that. Yeah, it's never changing.
Lots of SEO, Google, trying to appear at the top of searches.
Exactly.
Like ads and things. Yeah, Gareth is the reason that when you Google us, we appear, pretty much.
Well, we've also got a huge content team as well that work very hard behind the scenes.
True.
But we've got a great team that do a lot for SEO and on the blog, and always make sure that when people are searching for us and our products, then we're always at number one or nearly number one.
Outside of work, you're like really into games and the game industry in general, and kind of what's happening in regards to like physical games, and you've got a massive collection of like physical games, verging on hoarding, I suppose.
I would say like I'm a bit of a hoarder anyway. I hoard so much random stuff, and unfortunately, or fortunately, video games is one of those. It kind of doesn't go from the fact of like I want to buy this because it's worth this much or could be this worth in the future. That's just stuff that I really enjoy, either games that I've enjoyed playing or games that I've lost over time and gone, I really need to rebuy that, or just games that I'm like, I need to buy that because I will want to play that at some point in the future, and I really can't be bothered with it being like £100 at some point in the future on eBay. So I'll just pick that up now before it potentially skyrockets in price.
Or even like our first topic is games not being accessible at all in the future, which is like the whole Stop Killing Games thing, which probably by the time you're watching this episode, the EU petition and the UK petition would have ended. There is a new, recently there's a new sort of Digital Fairness Act, which the Stop Killing Games is trying to get like involved with that again. But essentially the signatures have passed. It's all really exciting. And I thought it was quite a good topic for us to talk about. It's something you're very passionate about. So,
I think it was something that came about. What was maybe like 3-4 months ago now. I remember we did it on an old BIOS episode ages ago, and I think it's just an important topic that has been overlooked. I feel like the evolution of how games are making their way into our living room has changed dramatically. I think they've been changing slowly over like 2015, 16, 17 with that generation of consoles. But then as it got to COVID and, you couldn't leave your house, you couldn't go to physical game stores, all that kind of stuff, it really went into overdrive of just how much we were relying on digital. And obviously publishers were well happy with that because it means then that, they're not paying the overheads of, producing the disc, getting into the hands of people. And then you've got Game Pass that's come along and kind of it then not only just being an ownership thing anymore, but being more of a streaming way of consuming games. So it feels like, digital adoption of games has really accelerated, and with that, maybe we've lost our way a bit in terms of who owns what, at what point they own that, and then what happens with that game once publishers decide that they just don't want to. You just don't want to support anymore. They can't afford to support it. We've seen in the past, like, you know, there'd be like the online part of a game would just kind of be discontinued, and you know that wasn't a drama because it was largely a single player game. The multiplayer game was kind of more like a nice add-on to it, so you weren't too bothered if the multiplayer part wasn't available anymore, and you kind of just made peace with that. But there's also been examples over the last few years where the game fundamentally just doesn't work anymore.
Like The Crew, the first Overwatch game, like very successful game, sold millions of copies, no longer playable.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
It's like history's just erased, you know. I don't even know if you can even engineer, if someone's even engineered a way to make that game accessible anymore. So yeah, you know, the game can't be accessed anymore, or there's like a DRM, digital rights management system, that relied on a particular server. So it's kind of like, yes, you've technically got the game, you could play the game, but the server that allows you to then play that game is no longer active or is no longer working with this version of Windows.
Or is it like ping something that doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah, exactly. So you can't even, you know, the thing that you own and you may even have a disc for is now locked behind some kind of wall that you can't get past anymore.
Yeah.
So I think the Stop Killing Games initiative really kind of highlighted just how much we've lost as a result of these slow changes over time. And yeah, I was very happy to see that it's made the threshold. I think there was the big campaign a few weeks ago of just reminding people that it existed.
Yeah, well, it started over a year ago originally, like when it was first launched. And there was a few signatures kind of kicked it off, but obviously because the campaign runs for such a long period of time, everyone just forgot about it for a year.
Yeah.
And then because it was like the final month or even like the final 2 or 3 weeks to get it done, suddenly there was this last push. A lot of big like gaming influencers and Twitch streamers and things like jumped onto it, did like a tweet or did a video about it, and then suddenly those million signatures just came out of nowhere for the EU petition particularly. I think the UK one was doing okay. Mm-hmm. It probably wasn't going to meet it without it, but that's now, I think, like easily over 100,000. I think it was 120, 130,000 last time I looked.
Yeah.
And the EU one is like 1.4 million.
Yeah, it's
now.
huge, the EU one is. So yeah, I signed the UK one. Went to sign the EU one and then couldn't find the UK on the list. And I was like, Brexit happened, didn't it? So yeah. But no, really glad to see that kind of went over. I think the push in the last few weeks, unfortunately, was kind of just a part of it just felt like it was down to a bit of internet drama. Yeah, I downplaying that a bit.
Yeah, there was a lot of drama around it. And I think a lot of it, I can understand the publishers obviously pushing back against this because of cost reasons, but yeah, you've had a lot of things happening online and videos are made and people are attacking each other. And I think in the end, a lot of people want the same thing. Their just idea of how to get there is quite different. Like everyone just wants to be able to play the things that they paid for.
Yeah, basically. I think like some of the criticism came from, I think people were just kind of too much in the weeds and being a bit too pedantic around the terminology used or the phrasing. But I think the core of it is a worthwhile cause. And I think people who are relatively intelligent, which I hope politicians are, should be able to debate and understand what the core need is, which when you strip it back is, you know, when you buy something, whether that be physical that relies on some kind of digital service or whether it's digital only, you own the rights to that. You don't rent it. You don't, you know, have it for a short period of time, and you need to retain what you paid for. Which I think when you boil it down to that is a bit of a no-brainer. Like why should we accept the fact that we pay £50, even £80 that some people are pushing for now, that on the hopes and dreams and promise that maybe we might be able to keep playing it for a bit longer than the first day we get it.
Yeah, it does make me think because I buy a lot of my games digitally now, and if you think about just PC gaming in general, has been digital for like 10, 15 years at least. So I always do think like when I buy a new game digitally and it's on a particular store like Steam or the Windows Store or like EA Origin or whatever, you always think if anything happens to that, I just won't be able to access it anymore. Yeah. Whereas like your big physical collection, at least you do have the discs available. It's just unfortunate now that the disc doesn't even have the game on it anymore. Yeah. It's just, you basically get a disc that is an activation code and that's it. You have to download the entire game on day one.
Yeah, completely. I think, you know, there's other industries that that have found ways to work digitally. You know, the music industry, you've got Spotify, but you can still get a physical CD. You can, you know, there's still ways that you can own what you've got, and if you can't own it, then there's other ways that you can acquire that quite easily. Films, for example, you can still buy DVDs and Blu-rays.
Yeah.
You know, yes, you might stream it or have a digital right to it, but if that gets taken away, there's another way that you can get that very easily. So why don't we have that in video games?
Yeah. And I think it's very important that this is happening. I really hope it goes through. I think everything's been done in order to try and make it go through. There's the new one now that was launched literally yesterday, where they're going to try and get on this Digital Fairness Act, which is once again EU only, so we can't get involved here in the UK, unfortunately. But if you are part of the EU, you can basically leave a comment. It's been open now for like public discussion, basically, and you just kind of go on the website and anyone can leave a comment. I guess try and make sure it's a well-constructed comment, so it's more like to take notice of it. But there's a bunch of consumer policy that the EU is going to start discussing. So they just want to kind of tack on to that. I've seen a few people say maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe Stop Killing Games should have its own separate initiative so it doesn't get muddied up with these other laws that they're trying to put through. But in general, this digital fairness policy looks very promising. It's basically stopping like gambling, predatory subscriptions, like things hidden within. You know, where you go to unsubscribe to something and it's like, oh no, don't do that, or it makes it hard to unsubscribe. So it's a lot of like really good stuff that's going through in regards to digital protections for consumers, and hopefully the EU will see games and bring them into that, because at the moment it doesn't include like games in the way that we want them to be protected.
Yeah, totally. I hope that they consult the right people and they get people who understand, are in the part of the community, you know, they're knowledgeable, can articulate themselves well, and really consult those people, because, you know, someone who's in their 40s, 50s plus who doesn't really have an interest in gaming, it's very hard for them to understand what the issue is and how they address that. So I really hope that they consult the right people for this and get some good advice, because there's a lot of people out there that know what needs to happen, and if they were to have, like, you know, a real world, I guess like a real world comparison to what would that digital behavior look like in the real world, and you'd be like, well, I wouldn't accept that in the real world, so why am I accepting that digitally? And we need to
it's almost like if you bought a car and then suddenly they turned off a server somewhere and your car no longer drove. I see it the same way as like not being able to access that game anymore. And I think we're not expecting it to work the same as if it was new, but I think there should be the option there that you can host your own server if you want to play with your friends, or the single player mode is still available even if a lot of the features are missing, etc. It's just a way to archive games so they don't get lost. There's like a massive list on the Stop Killing Games website of hundreds of games that you can't access anymore. Like, they're just completely dead, which is a real shame, and it's quite important for kind of history, I suppose, to maintain that.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that probably leads us nicely on to just like physical games in general. And Stop Killing Games, the best way to get around that is to own a physical copy of a game. But like I mentioned, like with PC gaming in particular, they don't even make cases with like disk drive support anymore. Like digital games have been a thing on PC for probably like 10, 15 years now. And Microsoft actually hasn't published a physical game since Gears 5, which was on the 10th of September 2019. So your physical sales are just completely gone. Like, you can still buy a physical copy, but it's basically a box with a code in it. So all the new games that are being announced, kind of like upcoming. So you're looking at Outer Worlds 2, Gears of War Reloaded, Ninja Gaiden 4. They're all live right now, where you can like pre-order them, but there's no physical copies available. There's a physical copy on PS5, but not on Xbox, which is strange that Microsoft has kind of done that.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got Game Pass. They want to push people to Game Pass, right? And the idea is that if you look on your storefront and you've got, right, I can get this, a digital copy for £70, or I can get Game Pass, which is, I don't know what it is, £10, £12 a month, Or, oh, actually, no, there's 1 month free trial. Screw it. I'm just going to do that. It's a smart business move from them. I mean, I applaud them from a business perspective, but from a consumer perspective, it's not great. Yeah, as you mentioned before, I'm a big fan of physical media. I like the idea that I've got something, it's on my shelf. No one can take that away from me. I can play that whenever I want to. I'm not pressured by it being removed from a storefront or, coming in and out of subscription services. I also like the idea that, you've got a shelf that documents the games that you've played. It's kind of like books. Everyone loves having a bookshelf, and it can spark conversation with people when they see it. You're like, oh, have you read that as well? That was pretty cool. What do you think to that? And I kind of see video games in the exact same way that, you've got this collection of games that, it's part of your personality. The games that you've played, you can enjoy, you can converse about them, and you can go back and replay them whenever you want without having to worry about, it being on Game Pass.
Yeah, the physical copies themselves actually used to be really beautiful as well. I think because maybe a lot of marketing was people walking into a store and looking at the covers and looking at the box, and that's how they decide what they were going to play. Yeah. So they put a lot of effort into the actual packaging, and it would have loads of awesome artwork. You'd get a proper game manual that would be more like a book. It wouldn't just be a black and white piece of paper. It's like an actual physical book. Some of these like collector's editions were incredible. Even more recently, I suppose like 10, 15 years ago, the collector's editions were pretty epic. Yep. There's a few flops in there. I think like you've listed a couple here, like the Marvel versus Capcom, the Infinity Stones.
They're not stones, they look like eggs. They look like eggs that were painted at Easter, and you're like, brilliant, I've paid £100 for this box of just eggs that I'm going to put in my cupboard and not look at again.
You used to get these like beautiful statues, like hand painted, beautiful artwork and stuff, which I'm sure you've probably got a few.
Yeah, I've got a few. I'm not proud of them, but yeah, there's a few knocking around.
And then like we had the God of War Ragnarok, which was just a digital game with a steel case.
Yeah, it's kind of like one of the main features the collector's edition was it comes with a steel case, and it's like, great, what am I going to put in this steel case? This piece of card that's got a scratch off code on it. It's kind of like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's a bit of a flop. And then the Mass Effect RC car, which used an app.
Yeah, you had to use an app to control it. I didn't buy this one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not salty about it. But yeah, you've got an RC car that you've got to use an app to control. Now, I don't know when that game when that app was released, but I can pretty much guarantee it's no longer available. And you've now got an RC car that you can't drive around because it used an app that is long gone.
Yeah, so it's just a rubbish kind of collector's edition, really. Whereas like physical copies used to be so cool. Like I remember seeing, like you had this big cardboard box and you'd have multiple discs often for the same game because it wouldn't fit on one disc. So you'd have to like play through a bit, and then you wouldn't have a cutscene. It would be like swap discs, and you have to insert the other disc. And then you had that wonderful manual with all the artwork and like all, there'd be no tutorial. You just get like a booklet instead that will kind of tell you what the controls and things were. Yeah.
Well, as you say about PC games, like you can't buy them physically anymore. I completely forgot it'd been that long since, and like. Before then, it wasn't even just like a small jewel case. Like it was a big box. Like it took up a lot of space.
Yeah.
And like I've gotten a box somewhere like the Sims, like the original Sims in the big box, and that was the manual. And the manual was like 200 pages because it literally gives you step-by-step guide on how to play that game. Obviously, we're in a different world now, so people like pick up things a lot quicker and they kind of want to find out themselves. But it's just an experience in itself that you've got this box. It sometimes opens out into a whole artwork piece to go off it. You've got a big, thick manual that's going to tell you exactly all how to play the game. And it just felt like it was more of an experience opposed to just like, I'll buy this, I'll set it to download. It's like going to take 4 hours, and then I'll come back. I might have even forgotten it's finished downloading at that point, and I'll play it for a few hours. And it just feels like it's not a moment that you remember. Because it's just so passive.
Everything's instant and everything's very convenient.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes we're missing out. And you can't share the games with your friends anymore. Because I used to play Sims 2. It was actually my friend that got me into Sims 2. Yeah. And she had a copy and she had all the expansion packs as well. Very lucky. It was a fortune.
I was going to say
that. So I got Sims 2. I think it was from like Game Station or something, but I didn't have any of the expansion packs. But I could borrow her expansion packs, and all I needed was the discs for like the last one I installed in order to play all of them.
Yeah.
So she could just lend me her like, I don't know, it must have been hundreds of pounds worth of DLC. And we could kind of like share it between us, which I think is a really nice experience. Or you could go around your friend's house with an Xbox, and maybe they didn't have the latest Halo, but you could bring it with you.
Yeah.
And you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, completely. I remember a brother where, we've got very similar taste in games, and, like the Telltale games, for example, and he'd be like, I've been playing The Walking Dead, for example. I was like, well, have you tried The Wolf Among Us? Like, no. It's like, right, well, borrow my disc, see what you reckon to
swap
it.
over.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, this is sick. I'm obsessed with this. So, you kind of just lose those moments. Like, we're very much just in our silos now.
Yeah, I think like Steam, you can kind of share games, and they also have the multiplayer sharing, which I think is really nice. Which is something they brought about during lockdown, so you could play with your friends online. But there is something missing about having those physical copies. But you can see why. I've got some data here that shows that console physical game sales in 2024 were less than half what they were in 2021. And 2021 was like peak lockdown.
Yeah.
So sales were pretty good, I guess, but they were already on the decline. The whole market has been in decline apparently since 2008. And more recently, they've just, completely crashed.
But I guess the question is, and I don't think any of us can answer this. Like, if anyone wants to go in the comments, try and answer this by all means. But like, of that decline, how much of that is general consumer demand? Like, they're on the shelves and they just don't care for the games anymore.
Yeah.
Versus it's because they can't get the physical game and they're just forced to get that digital.
That is true. Actually, it might just be a case of they're forced. Like, you used to be able to go into Tesco and buy your games, or you could go into, I don't know, any supermarket or a lot of shops that you wouldn't expect. You could buy the latest game and it would be available on the day it came out, and a lot of them have closed those sections of the store now. And even when you look at the DVD section, it used to be shelves and shelves of all the latest releases, and now there's maybe like a tiny selection.
It's tiny, and it's a shame. It is where it is. I worked at Game Station many years ago, and there was that hype of a midnight launch. You'd have like 300, 400, 500 people queuing out the door. They were hyped to get their physical copy. There was a proper buzz in the air. They'd go away with a physical copy, and
cheap book.
All that stuff, and the merch and everything else, and that just isn't a thing anymore. And no one wants to be queuing up at midnight. Like, let's face it, you don't want to be queuing up at midnight for it. But how many people would actually still go to a store if they could get a physical copy?
I do think a lot of people would, because it's way more convenient. You can pre-download it like 2 days before.
Yeah.
So it's already downloaded and it's ready to go, and it's patched by the time the launch date comes around.
Yeah, true.
But I think it would be nice to have the option. But so I think, to kind of round up, we've been talking a lot about the game industry just in general, I suppose, and everything about gaming. I think we should move on to this is a great topic, actually. EA reportedly expects Battlefield 6 to have 100 million players, 3 times more than the series' bestseller.
Just let that sink in. It's insane. Like, I love Battlefield. Like, Battlefield 2, 2142, Battlefield 3. Like, I was all in on those when they came out. So when I see Battlefield where it is at the moment, it is sad, because it used to be such a huge franchise. And is it such a huge franchise that's going to get 100 million?
No, like, to put that figure into perspective, there's some more data here for you. So that's the same as Call of Duty Warzone in April 2021. Which was peak lockdown. Yeah. So everyone is gaming, basically. And then that's half of Fortnite. And you know how popular Fortnite is.
Yeah, exactly.
200 million. And also, PlayStation just announced that like the entire Horizon franchise, so Zero Dawn, has sold 38 million copies. And they want Battlefield to have 100 million players.
Yeah. And it's already coming from a deficit.
Yeah,
because the last game just didn't do well.
No, it
just didn't meet expectations.
It was released too early and it was full of bugs, and they promised too much and under-delivered. And a lot of the time, I don't think that's necessarily the developer's fault. And we've seen it with like Cyberpunk and things like that. Game is really good now. They just needed like another year to polish it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, 100 million is crazy, especially when you contextualize it like that. Warzone, what was that, like 3-4 years of them probably grinding to get to that point for their user base. Fortnite, again, that's been going for what, 8 years, 7-8 years at this point?
Oh, that's terrifying to think it's been around that long, but yeah, it probably has been.
Yeah, exactly.
Extremely popular, been around for a long time. I know Battlefield as a franchise has been around for a long time, but it's still been quite niche, even within that particular genre. Like everyone played Call of Duty, and people, if it was a school day, suddenly everyone's off sick because the new Call of Duty's come out. But I do think Battlefield ever had that same audience because it was I saw it as more difficult, more challenging. Like you actually had to try.
It was more tactical. It was team based. It was tactical. It wasn't like, I guess in comparison to Call of Duty, it wasn't an arcadey shooter.
Yeah, you can just pick it up.
Yeah, you can't just jump in. You can't just I'll do 10-15 minutes, do a couple of rounds, and then head off. You've headset on, you're chatting to your team. There's more tactics involved with that. So I think fundamentally the Battlefield experience just doesn't really talk as much to that casual gamer, the one that can just sit on the sofa for half an hour, play a few games, and then head off and do the rest of their business. And Battlefield never used to be like this, where it was like an annual release or biannual release. It was always something that they put a release out and it'd be there for like 3 years. They tried to, I remember many years ago, EA tried to combat Call of Duty by alternating between Battlefield and Medal of Honor. So you'd have a Battlefield out 1 year, Medal of Honor come out the next year, and then a Battlefield would come out the year after that. So that was like their way of doing an annual release without actually milking one particular franchise too much. But it feels like they're wheeling out Battlefield yet again for another round.
Yeah, and it does, in a way, I imagine like Battlefield fans might be a bit concerned that in order to get that audience, they're going to have to make the game more mainstream, more like arcadey shooter. But then you're kind of destroying what makes Battlefield.
Exactly.
If you're trying to turn it into Fortnite to get that wider appeal, which you're going to have to if you want 100 million players, it maybe just wouldn't be a Battlefield game anymore.
Yeah, it's just Battlefield by name at that point, isn't it? And from, well, I don't know if people know, but what I imagine is from like an exec level, they've just gone, right, we've spent this much on Battlefield so far, we've got this many people working on it. In order to get the ROI that we need this many people playing it. And that's not like an ambition. Like they literally need them numbers in order to deem this release a success, in order to show, shareholder value and get that stock price pumping. Like that's just what they need.
Yeah.
And it's a shame that if it doesn't reach that target, it could be an amazing game. I really hope Battlefield 6 just pull one out of the bag and it makes up for the last releases. But if that doesn't hit that target, I'm worried that it'll then be deemed a failure. And I don't know, will it go back on the shelf?
Yeah, it's quite terrifying. I think it's a very unrealistic expectation, and maybe that is what is harming a lot of studios and why we're seeing a lot of studios shut down that necessarily don't deserve it because the expectations are too high.
Yeah.
And there is a lot of money, like so much money in the gaming industry now. Like, it's
I think people forget that the video games industry isn't this like small bedroom industry where you've got people just making stuff out of the bedroom in a small team. Like, I think something like, isn't the video game industry like bigger than films and music combined or something insane like
billions,
that?
Billions,
it's absolutely huge. Yeah. So with that, of course, there's going to be big money on the table. There's going to be high expectations. Numbers need to keep going up.
Yeah, and I think there's an example here of some studios that have been kind of closed down that probably didn't deserve it. So the biggest one for me was Hi-Fi Rush Tango Gameworks, and thankfully I think they've been kind of saved now. But that came as such a shock because that game was so highly reviewed. It seemed like it was very successful, but that was deemed as like still not good enough. We're shutting them down. You've got the team that made Redfall, the Arcane team. That wasn't the type of game that they would typically make, and it obviously was kind of there were some issues when it came out, and that studio got killed off. And then we've got Pandemic Studios.
Yeah.
Which I think many people consider to be a massive crime.
They were huge in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Like they should not have been able to put out the games they put out during that time period. It was like Battlefield, Destroy All Humans, Saboteur, like they're games that make up people's childhood.
Yeah, it's just like a lot of iconic 2000s games came out from Pandemic Studios, and then they were forced to make Dark Knight, or part of the team worked on Dark Knight, which we know what happened to that game, and then also Lord of the Rings Conquest, which didn't do as well as expected. So EA just killed them off.
Yeah, it's such a shame, and I think the only loser in that scenario is the developer team itself. You know, hopefully those guys go on and get jobs elsewhere, but a lot of the success of those games they made in the past were down to the fact that you had that group of people together at that time period. You know, the energy and the ideas being bounced in that room will not be replicated. If, you know, that half that team go to one developer and half that team go to another, they're not going to be able to replicate that magic easily. Yeah. And yes, the publisher, they keep the IP, they can wheel it out again at some point in the future.
Well, Battlefront is an example of that, where it's been wheeled out and it didn't do no,
and it's because it's not it's not the same team working on it. It's not the same ideas. It's not the same creative energy. So you've kind of just got a shell of what it was previously.
Yeah.
And you know, you've got people waiting for that game to come out. They've got expectations that it'll be like how it was before, and shock it isn't, and everyone gets disappointed. And it's just a shame that it's the publisher that kind of doesn't have much skin in the game there. It's kind of like, you know, they still retain the IP, they can still bring that game back if they want to, and unfortunately people just lose their jobs as a result of it. You know, saying it's the video game industry is that big now. You know, it's high stakes, it's high money, and it feels like it's in this cycle of, you know, they announce a game too early because they need to show investors that, you know, they're putting something out there. They then rush that game because they need to minimize costs as much as possible, which then it ends up being a bit of a flop and it doesn't sell well. So it's kind of this endless, not endless, but it's a cycle of just a self-fulfilling prophecy. If, you know, you don't put love and attention to something, it doesn't sell well, you don't do it again. And it doesn't leave much room now for, if you're a developer as part of a big publisher, is there any room to be creative? Can you experiment? Could you potentially create a new genre or try a new game mechanic? I don't know.
No, they like to play it safe, and they keep, you know, they keep bringing back the same IP, or they'll be like, oh, we've made a remaster of the remaster, you know, or they just bring back the same game again that they know will do well, or reuse the same formula. I think it's the nice thing about indie games is they can be a lot more experimental, and sometimes you find really amazing, fun gameplay, and some of these massive viral games that have blown up, you can see are made on such a small budget, but it's because everyone can play them, like they're easy to run because they don't really, you know, they don't care about graphics. It's all about the gameplay, and that just makes them like so much more fun. But it means that almost now when you see a new big AAA title that's been announced and it's got this big beautiful trailer, you almost anticipate the downfall when it launches.
It's a horrible place to be in, because AAA games used to be huge. Like, you would be excited. It would come out at Christmas. You'd be obsessively reading about it, what it's going to be like. You'd be very optimistic about it. Whilst now something gets announced that's of that level, and you're kind of like, oh, let's see how this goes down. Maybe I'll hang around. Maybe it might, you know, wait for it to be discounted on Steam. We'll see.
There's quite a few games actually that I've like, oh, I'll wait to see what happens till it comes out. I just don't pre-order games anymore. And then when it comes out, I'm like, oh, okay, the reviews aren't as good as I expected. I guess I'll just wait for the Steam sale, or I'll wait till it goes on Game Pass. And it's just, it's a bit unfortunate that we kind of anticipate that now because of the way the game industry's gone.
Indeed.
Cool. Anything else you wanted to mention in regards to the topics we've covered today? It's been really good.
No, I think it's been a good chat.
Yeah. Thank you, Gareth, for coming on. Make sure you guys are nice in the comments, and I really enjoyed it. We actually talk a lot about hardware here, so it's really nice to talk a little bit more about the game industry and some quite hot topics, I suppose, in this episode in regards to the way the game industry is going and physical games, and quite a lot about like consoles and things. But I think consoles and PC is like, we're all one big family, aren't we, really? So if you enjoyed the episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and look out for our other podcast episodes, which will be coming soon. And I'll see you again in the next one.